Hello and welcome to another episode of Tom's Tube Chan. Today we're going to look at the MT-01. Unfortunately, at the beginning of December, if you follow my Facebook page, you'll see that I actually crashed the bike. It wasn't a very big crash, it was just the front end just disappeared onto the left hand side. Managed to dent the tank, break the clutch reservoir, lose a wing mirror and a little bit of damage to the side of the engine as well. Unfortunately, that's just part of owning a motorcycle. Today, what we're going to look at is taking off the petrol tank, ready to be repaired. So this is a cheap siphon pump, a hand pump that I got off of Amazon, as is the jerry can. All links below for those items. So let's begin draining the tank off. There's an arrow on this to say what direction it should go. Now this is cheap, so I'm not expecting it to flow out particularly quickly. It's only got to do one job. Now, as always, be very, very careful with things like fuel. Try and get the hose all the way to the bottom of the tank if you can. And we put that part into the jerry can like so. We do not want fuel everywhere. So maybe just put the lid down a bit on the jerry can just to hold it in place. Make sure that you've got it going the right way. Make sure you use all the slack if you can. Just get the process going. Like so. Just keep an eye on it, do not leave it to drain. Now the MT-01 holds about 15 litres of fuel, so a 20 litre jerry can should be enough. Okay, so all of the petrol is now drained out of the tank into the jerry can. It took a really long time with that hand siphon pump. There's probably other ways you can do it. I only need to use the one pump once hopefully, so it's done its job. So the first thing we need to do is we need to remove the cover here, removing the two Allen bolts, and then we'll move on to the next part. So the first two bolts we need to remove are these guys here. So with those two Allen bolts removed, you can just remove the cover. It has two what I suppose you call poppers that connect onto the tank like so, and it just pulls away. Next we need to remove these two bolts here. So these two bolts have been removed, so now the tank should just lift away. So now we just need to lift the tank away from the bike and disconnect the hoses. Okay, so underneath the bike you have the fuel hose, breather hose. Hope you can see that. So this is your fuel hose, this is your breather hose, and these are your electrical connections. You just literally need to disconnect those and lift the tank away. The tank is now removed. Now when you remove the tank, and especially when you remove this connection here, which is the fuel that goes to the fuel injection, make sure that you put a rag down where the tank is, so that basically this will drop a little bit of fuel, and you do not want that dropping down onto the battery. This is a real pain to get off, the breather hose, and up on the left hand side of the tank there's these two breather hoses as well, and they are really hard to get off and you don't have a lot of room to work with. But the tank is now off, so that's good. Okay, so now we have the fuel tank off, we just need to remove these bolts here and these screws to get the fuel pump out. So you only have to remove these 5 bolts, which takes this off, like so. And that should give us access to the fuel pump. we go. I'll be careful with this guy. A little bit of excess fuel dripping off. And to remove the filler cap, you just undo these 4 bolts. This one's a dummy one, don't need to worry about that one. And it just lifts out like so. Good idea just to give that a good little scrub up. Thanks for watching, everyone. That's the end of today's video. I hope you learned something about taking off of your MT-01's petrol tank. There's a few things to bear in mind, of course. That you're dealing with petrol, it's a very flammable liquid, so make sure that you empty the tank as much as you possibly can before taking it off. Using the technique that I use worked pretty well, and it's a cheap way of doing it. The other thing to bear in mind is when you remove the tank, the breather pipes here are really difficult to pull off, so just be careful of that. And also there's one down here which is quite hard to pull off. When you remove the tank, make sure you put a rag underneath it, because there will be a small amount of excess petrol coming through the fuel pump. Other than that, quite successful. The tank is going to go off to be repaired. When it returns, I will refit the tank and I'll do a video showing that as well. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up.